you're doing it for something like bigger and better than all of us, I think.
The golden thread.
Yeah.
Sabrina, Anna, thank you so much for hosting Serve with Purpose, Belu's new podcast. I want to start with the end in mind. What does Serve with Purpose mean to both of you?
It's such a big question. Well, look, thank you for having us on. I think the topic of purpose is so important because I think for me it goes, and it should go beyond your job, beyond maybe that current iteration of your life. For me, like my purpose was always, in various careers that I've had, has always been wanting to help people, wanting to make a difference and have impact. And I think that's changed over the years on how I've done that. And it's gone from everything from like military to hospitality to helping the homeless to back to sort of hospitality, but in a new way. And I think when you have that really strong sense of purpose, it makes making those decisions really easy. Because you're not aligning, you're not like, oh, I'm doing this because of this job. You're doing it for something like bigger and better than all of us, I think.
The golden thread.
Yeah.
Completely. I think it's the plus, isn't it? So what are you doing
Yeah.
above and beyond your action that makes a difference to other people, which I think more and more of us are kind of coming to how much value that adds. So symbiotic, really, because the more that you focus on your purpose, the more inclined you are to make actions and take actions that align with that. So it's a bit of a kind of self-perpetuating prophecy, I think, which is really important. And it's about legacy, really.
Yeah.
You know?
What are you leaving for the next generation? What are you inspiring? Because all of this, you know, is really nice and getting to go to really nice places and eat and drink. But what are we doing that's bigger and better and more? And I think, you know, for me, my sort of realization point, and I think this is how we kind of met, was in lockdown when we were working for this charity called Under One Sky. And it was about, it really made me, I think hospitality, it was getting to the stage where we were like winning awards and this, and actually, can you still deliver that level of hospitality and that empathy to people that have nothing? Because in a luxury 5-star hotel, I'm not saying it's easy all the time, but it's very different to when you're on the streets. Can you still sit down and have that conversation with somebody that can't leave you a tip, that isn't rich or isn't privileged or any of this? And that was my sort of turning point.
But in that moment needs that empathy and that care and that service.
And like even small things like remembering how many sugars somebody takes in their tea just goes such a long way. And I think, you know, that purpose can drive you. Sometimes you do, I think it's really hard sometimes when people ask maybe the question like at school, what do you want to be when you're older? I don't know. Like it's, but then when you have purposes, well, what do you want to achieve? How do you want to make someone feel? And I think when you're purpose driven like that, it doesn't really matter what you do in your day-to-day job.
I think so. And I'm not sure we're asking ourselves the question often enough, if I'm really honest with you, is that everything is career or progression or otherwise, but actually are we sitting down with each other in industry and ourselves and asking those questions to say, so yes, we're running a successful business, wonderful. We are, you know, ticking that box, but are we fulfilled, aligned? Are we happy that our professional lives are aligning with our personal kind of, you know, requirements and the things that we value, you know, in terms of wellness, our industry? I think there's an exciting opportunity to bring together all of these worlds, because I genuinely believe that they can coexist and that they really benefit each other when you bring these things together.
Good people then end up spending time with good people. As you said that, Anna, we met because of not necessarily hospitality, but because we were trying to make a difference somewhere else. And that isn't an accident. I think that is the core of what you both do, and the fact that you, beyond the day jobs, also have other initiatives that are about helping other people. So you can't help but think there's a serendipitous way that all of this has come about, because you give a shit.
Completely. And it's power. And when that energy is galvanized, I think there's a really incredible kind of opportunity to do quite remarkable things here. And obviously things don't just happen. You might come together by accident, but when you actually throw the ideas into the mix and agree to take action, that's when you become quite deadly, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, that's when stuff really happens. And, you know, it's wonderful to connect. And it's really lovely to know that, you know, we're all looking for, some of those things aren't tangible. You know, they can't be governed by statistics or data always, but what the return is and the reward is tremendously important. And it is vital that we all continue to make sure we're doing things that aren't quantifiable, but still do good as we progress in the industries that we're in, really.
I think it's really important to kind of, again, like look at like the community as well. And I think can touch a few things, that connection. I think giving people that human touch, that human connection, building that community that goes beyond like winning an award or winning. Okay, it's nice to win awards and everything, don't get me wrong. And to sit in a meeting and your P&L be great and not get shouted at. But you hit the nail on the head. Like sometimes it's really hard to quantify when you do good and when you give time to people. But you feel it. And I think that is hospitality. But it's just getting to that point. And I think people talk a lot about, oh, I want to do this, I do this. It's just like, okay, but who's taking action? Because it's nice to have these conversations, but if you don't, like purpose requires action, and it can be small or it can be big.
That's a t-shirt. Someone write that down.
How much for this is going to be?
I've forgotten already.
But you're so true, because it's not just what we do, it's who you are, really. And I think this is what you can't really get away from. So, when I'm cooking dinner at home, there's absolutely no way I'm serving food when I've not wiped the plate. So if there's it's an extension of how you are, who you are, how you interact with other people in your industry, and the people that you connect with. It's an extension of all of that. So you don't get to turn it off.
Would you want to?
No. I think it's like when you find your purpose, you find yourself. It doesn't have to be this kind of huge shift, but I think it's just this alignment that we all have a choice to make. And I think when we say like things like celebrate her, it's like, making that choice and taking that chance to make that change. And that's our kind of like little kind of slogan. And it's true. Like, are you going to make a difference? Like, are you going to stand up for that person? Are you going to walk past that person? It's that choice. Not to say that any of those are right or wrong, but what is that right choice to align yourself with your purpose or to find
completely
that?
And also, as you check in with yourself, sometimes you'll find that you're more ready to take action in places that you weren't beforehand. And sometimes that's a confidence thing. Perhaps earlier in my career, I didn't feel ready to start thinking about giving back because I hadn't perhaps put enough in, or whatever that might have been. Whereas now, for me, there's a massive legacy piece, which is that we should all live with the idea of what we've done for everybody else, actually. So, I've been very successful. I've had a wonderful career in my industry, and thankfully it continues. But also, how are we supporting people? How are we encouraging people? And how are we sharing some of what we've been lucky enough to, not just lucky, but worked hard enough to enjoy? But how do we share all of those things with people? Advice, mentorship, conversation, making yourself available, It's all really important.
So you bring me to a key point. So people might be listening, watching, thinking, who is this podcast for? I personally think it's for anyone who's just starting their career in hospitality and wants to hear from two of the best in terms of what to look out for, what to consider, what to do, how to find your own purpose, and everyone else that we speak to, of course. But also, if you're in the industry and you're having that moment of, to what end? What's my so what? I think over the journey that we're going to have, it should hopefully inspire people and motivate them to take action. Action is the key word off the back of this. Serving with purpose. It isn't a passive title. That is a doing statement. So that's my hope for it. What about you? Who do you think this podcast is for, and what's the one thing you'd want them to take away?
Oh gosh, for me it would be the next generation of people. So I'm talking about the people like that maybe are in their final year at school and don't necessarily know what to do. Because I was that kid where I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like I was like an all-rounder. Nobody wants to be an all-rounder because you just...
I'm very happy being an all-rounder.
Yeah, but maybe it's that person that's maybe slightly rebellious, that doesn't want to follow that traditional, that doesn't maybe want to go to university, that doesn't know what to do. And I hope that this will be, to open their eyes to an industry that isn't taught in school and show that it's not just about putting a glass on the table or putting something on the plate. It is so much more than that. And you can take those skills and you can go essentially to any industry. Also, it's just like, just because I start off as a host in this industry, but you can create your dream job and travel the world and design glassware or create content or do podcasts, or it's not linear. And I think it's like, take that chance, develop your skills.
Totally.
You could end up being a psychologist, at the end of it.
I think it's that thing where there are very few industries where if you are not academically minded, how can you build an incredibly successful career that relies on your grit, your determination, your ambition, your creativity, and also, a bit of graft, which is really important. But can you build an entire career from that? Yes, you can. Yeah. Are you very welcome in an industry that is, as you say, so much more than I think what people are told about, and my work in colleges, I think people think you either are front of house or you're back of house, and that's the choices.
It's not true.
And actually that's not true. And in a world that's increasingly connected through technology, the opportunities really are endless. And I think we should normalize the evolution of our roles, So whilst we begin in one particular area, why would you not? This massive scope for growth, development. I mean, it's so exciting. I want to get back into it, but we're already here. So
and it's global as well. Like you can honestly, like my background was bars. I can walk into any bar in anywhere in the world, and within about maybe one or two questions, you maybe establish a connection over the type of drink you order, or they may go, oh, you should go to this bar next, or you connect on social media, you've got mutual friends. It's such, I think, an inclusive industry, probably one of the most inclusive industries where, you don't need to know someone to get a job. You can just walk in and it's global. You can work anywhere in the world and your communication is your food or your drinks or, whatever that is.
So tell me how you both got started. Because Anna, you've said military a few times, and did I miss something?
Yeah.
Maybe you did tell me, but I don't know the story.
This goes back to my sort of purpose. Is when I was 16. Again, I didn't know what to do. I was always like in trouble at school, and it gave me a sense of purpose. But I was like, well, I want to make a difference, but I also want to show the boys that like girls can do this as well, and girls can be, physically on a par with boys, and I think it came with a bit of naivety, but it was at school and had this opportunity to go into the cadets, and it was like you were training every week and you got to go weekends away and you got to go climbing and assault courses.
I thought you were going to say clubbing then.
Oh gosh, well, I was probably the same thing. But again, that was my first sense of purpose. And then got to apply for Sandhurst. And then this was like, I still remember it being like one of the key sort of proudest moments when I got the place. And it was, and then you get sponsored by like the Royal Artillery and this, and it just built this. And for a long time, this was my career. And I ended up getting medically discharged with Graves' disease, which is a thyroid endocrine thing. But it was, again, and then I segued into hospitality, which I was lucky enough, like worked at the Savoy. Very, very similar in terms of you can't do anything by yourself. As in, you need a team to support you but it was a really, I'll never forget that sort of time. But again, my purpose started there. Yeah. It's changed through the different iterations of my life. But the purpose was still there, that I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help people. It's just a different way of doing it. Yeah. So, and life happens in weird and kind of wonderful ways. So,
That's so special.
You're so right, because I went to college to study fashion design. And my degree is in fashion PR and marketing, which I loved. Okay. Still do love. Yeah. Hence the trainer habit. But I was working as a waitress actually to subsidise said shoe habit I picked up. And when the chef injured himself, I stepped in and finished the service. And I'd always cooked at home in a kind of, loved recreating these meals and thinking I was, really far more advanced than I may well have been. But at the tender age of 11, a tuna pasta bake now is pretty,
I would have one that happily.
So I finished my degree and I was working part-time in kitchens. But when I stepped into that kitchen, I literally, the light bulb moment happened for me. And I just thought, this was never on the table for me as an option. No one ever, through careers, through school, even at home. This was a world that was never considered a possibility for me. So to have found that, I realised at that point that this was where I was supposed to be. So I started at the Dorchester Hotel, moved into gastropubs and kind of worked into industry with no formal training, but just with this desire to work with food in whatever capacity that was. We met at a women's members club, didn't we? Which is where we connected through that journey, looking around and not also seeing as many people like myself. So, it was not normal for a young Asian female to become a chef in London.
Yeah.
And thankfully, these things are changing because it's wonderful to be visible to people.
Again, I love the past tense. It wasn't normal.
Yeah.
Now, as we'll show throughout this podcast, it is. It's still not mainstream or as mainstream as it could be. And I would say women in general, Black women in general, but it is absolutely possible and there is visibility.
And this is it, isn't it? So when we talk about purpose, you know, and there were a couple of culinary competitions and such. And for me, I think now age is a wonderful thing with this too, but also you realise that you became visible to other people, and that's the point. You show people that it is possible and that there is a space for you there because I'm here or wherever I might be. And that is really important to me now, so that, you know, once you've come through the door, you've kicked it open, you know, you hold the door open and then you let everybody in because that's the way it should be. So, you know, it's the power of purpose, I think.
I'm so excited for this podcast.
Yeah, me too.
If we could speak to one person, one guest that's not already on the roster, who would it be? Who would you like to sit down with to talk about purpose?
Difficult question. I'm going to pass that to you first, Anna.
You know what? Actually, there is one person, and I think for me, he embodies hospitality. Amrit, who owns this incredible restaurant in Covent Garden called Punjab.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So you might know, but he was the one that worked with Under One Sky to provide all of the meals during lockdown.
He was incredible at the screening.
Gosh, he is the most selfless person I've ever met. Just his energy is incredible. Like, he's an incredible lawyer. But this restaurant's 4th generation owned.
Yeah.
But the way that he welcomed everybody in, and we were chaotic in lockdown. We were like, you know, wanted to go out, like all of this. He'd be like, just welcomed us into his house, looked after us, gave us food, gave us drinks, like all of this stuff. But whilst all that was going on, also fed hundreds of, I don't know, probably even 500,000 people.
Yeah.
But his purpose was just like, he is all about purpose, and he's just phenomenal. And I think he embodies what hospitality is. Whenever anyone asks me, I'm like, and you know, this restaurant, it's not like in the sort of like set or winning awards or something, but this place should be the place.
And it's
that
such
is benchmark.
an important part of London historic restaurant, because you know, it's an institution in the best possible way, isn't it? You know,
it's painted blue on Neal Street. If anyone wants incredible food,
we need to do a roundup on this after this.
We absolutely need.
But it's incredible for me. It's all about like how he serves other people and and I think they made a really interesting comment, and it's to understand, in order to have impact, you need to understand what people value. Yeah. And I was like, light bulb moment. And now I coin that. So what about you?
Oh gosh. I mean, there are so many. Now I can't pin this down because, you know, you kind of think about the history of UK restaurants. You know, some amazing trailblazers who are still with us, some whom are not. I'm keeping a very open page here. I want to hear from everyone. So a really food, drink, front of house, back of house, photography. I mean, there's incredible things that come together to make this industry really tick and thrive. And I'm ready to chat with everyone.
Yeah.
I'm excited by this conversation and who will speak to you, because for me it feels like a gap. I think there are lots of great pods that are talking about the core of food or the art of mixology, or you know, the behind the scenes at hotels, and I definitely want to do some behind the scenes at hotels here, but bringing in purpose in its broadest sense, but just saying, what does serving with purpose mean within the context of hospitality? I think that's quite a special conversation to have, because everyone in hospitality, when you ask that question, does have an answer.
Yeah.
And it's a point of connection, regardless of which bit of hospitality you come from.
Yeah.
And I say that as a newbie to hospitality. I'm more of a retail girl. The questions will be starting all of the podcasts with 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the first one is, what's one place that brings you peace?
Can I have 2, or does it actually have to be 1?
Go on, you can break the rules.
Look, the first at the beginning, she breaks the rules. Why change a habit in a lifetime? I mean, one is that, you know, that advert that said you'll always find us in the kitchen at parties. Like, you'll always find me in the kitchen at any point. I just naturally gravitate there. So it's this opportunity to feed people. So there, and then in my mother's kitchen at home, because it just has this incredible kind of, it's where it really all began for me. So yes, kitchens, full stop, but at home, my family home, with all the pots and pans and, you know, all those happy memories of delicious things.
That's so nice. Mine's always like changed through, I guess, who I am. And I think now, like for me, that sort of kind of calmness that I get from a place is when I, like in the gym, which I would honestly, up until a year ago, I used to use the gym to get ready for the night out. But now I genuinely use it for like the purpose that it is. But it's like, it's such a wonderful thing, because I never thought I would be that person that would love sort of like exercise. But it gives me this kind of like 45 minutes, an hour where I'm not like on my phone.
Yeah.
The kind of calmness that you get through that weird kind of like pain of, or like cycling or HIIT class or whatever. So that for me is so important, because it gives me that sort of release from that sort of pressure that I put on myself. So I think that's kind of what I would say. But I think there's certain places that you resonate with, wherever that is in the world, where you just do feel that sense of calmness and that energy. You're like, oh, this is where I can be my true authentic self without having to worry about hair and makeup or what people are saying about you, or this or this or this or this.
The second question, 2 things you always have in your kitchen at home.
Oh,
You can go first for this.
I don't have much in my kitchen at home. I have anxiety on what I'm going to burn. But also I'm so lucky. I've got an incredible collection of spirits, because that's one of my sort of passions. Champagne as well. I think you should always have a bottle of champagne in your fridge. But also a brilliant collection of alcoholic spirits and alcohol-free things as well. And that combination, I've got everything from super rare vintage spirits and distilleries that have closed down, which is just, there's only 10 shots left of that in the world. And that comes with that story.
Yeah.
So it's so rare that I will drink at home. But then it's like, I'm such like, if you're going to drink well, drink and eat the best quality you can afford or get your hands on. But yeah, I don't have a huge amount of food, which is why we have people like you.
Step in. That's great. So we should have we've got a nice synergy here, haven't we? So, I mean, it depends on the work and where you are, because there will be times where if you came to my house and I'd been away for work, there'll just be hot sauce. So there's 3 shelves of hot sauce.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
But nothing to actually consume it with.
Just fine.
Just all sorts of sauces.
Yeah.
So you'll always find a bit of heat. And then, and a really great bar of dark chocolate.
Oh, God,
so,
I love chocolate
sweets.
Oh, my
just
gosh,
that, you know, something really delicious to just, you know. So there, I mean, two things that I would always have. And then I'm leaning into the champagne shop, because there should always be something ready to open.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to add British sparkling wine to the list. Okay. I live in East Sussex, and
that's some great vineyards.
Really vineyards, yeah.
I went to a French bistro not too far from here the other day, as he said, do you want a glass of champagne? I was like, do you have any British?
Oh my God, you can't say that to a French person.
But it just fell out of my mouth, because I've been on a campaign in my head to choose British on the menu.
Yeah, okay.
And it was only he said, no, everything is very French, and walked
did
away.
He say very French?
Yeah, I was like,
Did you say it in a French accent?
Yeah, he did. That is totally on me, because there is no such thing as British champagne.
Yeah.
No.
But I was fighting the good fight.
Quite right too. And as long as it's very well chilled and sparkly and delicious and right up your street, then it's fine, isn't it?
Exactly.
So other brands and offers are available. Yeah. Just for everyone. Oh my goodness.
So that's my hospitality horror story, where it's kind of like, does she work in hospitality? I do, I promise. And then finally, one person that has had an impact on your career personally, or your sense of purpose.
That's such a hard one, I think, because I think there's been so many people over the years that have, I look back and I'm like, if I hadn't met this person, or if they hadn't been my manager, if they hadn't given me that seat at the table, would I still be where I was? And the answer is probably no, because I think we need people. We need help as much as maybe like We don't want to ask for it. We need people.
It's the difference.
Yeah.
It's the difference. And then that's also what we have to do for other people. And I know it's hard sometimes when somebody will message you and you'll maybe lose the message, or, and it's like, I look back and I'm like, I need to follow up on that. Yeah. But I think it's so important for people to give that chance, even maybe when someone's not ready.
Yeah.
But I think, my very first manager, Daniel at the Savoy, this is when I this was me entering into hospitality.
How old were you?
I was 23. Okay. I mean, I was chaos. I just looked like I rolled out of nightclubs. I probably had. My blonde hair, like badly faked tan. But he was like, right, this look. Not going to work tomorrow. But he gave me that chance and he mentored me. And every day he taught me something new. And I was like, but why do I say it like this instead of this? Like, we've known each other now 15 years. And he's still somebody that I will call and be like, hey, what do I do here? Or like, hey, this man didn't text you back. What do I do? I mean, nothing's changed. They've just gone from boys to men. But it's, having those people is so important.
I agree.
And, Daniel now looks after Glen Eagles. And it's just this incredible kind of journey that you go on with someone. And it's so wholesome in every aspect. So, I think we all need to be that person to someone else. Or to have somebody like that.
I think so.
Really
and it's so lovely because it evolves, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So whilst he's changed hotels and sites, the progression, once the connection is there, it's forever.
Yeah,
and I think this is what, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but in hospitality, it's very much the same way. This isn't you don't travel through this industry on your own.
Yep.
You travel in the slipstream of incredible energy and connection and whatever, and you have one chat and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, we know each other from before, or we know so and so, or it's not a solo journey. It's a team effort, group effort. I think it's very hard to pinpoint specific people, just because literally one conversation can change the entire landscape of the decisions you were about to make, or how aligned with your purpose you are, or which route you take. And I think as long as you are willing, accepting and free to the fact that things will, move and meander, I think it's very exciting and so wonderful to know that this many people have helped shape your journey, and that for me, some of the things I'm most proud of are the people who have worked with me in roles previous, and they go on and do all these incredible things, and the pride you feel coming in to someone else's restaurant, and you're like, this is just
incredible. It's full circle moments.
And that's the richness of all of it, is that you don't physically take something back for yourself, you feel it, and that's it. It's just magic. I've got goosebumps.
If ever there was an ad for joining hospitality, you too.
Ready.
Let's get that TV show. For anyone listening, we'll have flavours of those 3 questions throughout the podcast, in addition to the big question, which is, what does serve with purpose mean to you, which we have answered in full. To bring this to a close, by the end of series 1, what do you hope to have learned? Because
all the guests are so different. I think different elements of the industry, and I think also, again, like our jobs and what we do now, it's not this kind of like straight line. It's going to change and it will evolve. And I think you never know the connection you might have with that next guest, or, and I think that's why it's so important to meet and take time to connect with other people, because you never know where that could lead. And I think it's building, really importantly within the industry, it's building that community. And I think that's going to be quite exciting, I think.
I agree.
Sabrina. I think so. And just the conversation, I would imagine that often in industry, you have a perception of characters and people. And I think only when you sit on a sofa with them and have a really open and honest conversation, do you really extract things that you wouldn't necessarily get from a press release, And I think it's that the thing that makes hospitality great is the people. So when you get to speak freely and share your energy, your value, and all the things that are meaningful to you, I think that's really special. So I'm really hoping we can get into places that some people haven't explored, some people don't think are open to them, to have conversations with people they may not have thought to speak with, that it's a lovely opportunity for us to do that and really share that with everyone, and some of those people might not be who you think they are. And that we're all people navigating the same world, just in a different circumstance. So it's going to be a wonderful journey, I've no doubt.
It is indeed. If you are listening to this podcast, click subscribe and we'll see you soon.